Hello, you're listening to Mike Madden on the Odd Show podcast. Here you'll find interviews with authors, musicians, artists and anyone else in and around the arts. Some of the interviews are taken direct from the Arts Show on Expat Radio, with one or two specials in between. This show features Michae Armstrong talking about his single Matters of Heart from his upcoming album, Ojai. Hello, this is Mike Madden, the show's Words and Music, and tonight I've got a guest on who was described by Sir Paul McCartney simply as a rock star. So welcome to the show, Michae Armstrong.
Thank you for having me, Mike. How are you doing? I'm
doing very well, and you're more than welcome to join us tonight. Now, it's 6 years since the release of your self-titled debut album. What was a release like back then? Because things are changing rapidly in that space, and I still hark back to the days of the charts on the radio and in the music press, based on physical sales of great big pieces of vinyl.
Yeah, it was certainly different. I mean, I remember those days you're talking about. I grew up in the times in the times just like that, when the only chance you could listen to your music was either on the radio or on Top of the Pops on a Thursday night, or the Countdown on Sunday afternoons, and I was glued to all of those when I was growing up. But really, I guess with my first album, I just caught the end of the kind of record sales situation before the streaming and the downloads and the very restricted radio playlists came into being. Really, I mean, for example, the first single from that album was a song called The Radio Years, and Terry Wogan was still alive, still presenting at the BBC, and he picked up on it, and he played it he was doing the Sunday show at that time, and he played it on his Sunday show for a few weeks running, and then eventually got me on the show to go and perform it live, and another song. And that doesn't happen anymore. From my experience with national radio, the DJs aren't even allowed, they couldn't just hear a piece of music and go out and play it now. It has to be on the playlist and agreed by the committee. And so people like Terry Wogan, who broke lots of artists and did me the huge favour of playing me, they're a breed that don't exist anymore, unfortunately, not on national radio anyway. So I kind of caught the downward wave of that, and that was a great help for me. I'm glad I did. It makes it harder now with the subsequent albums to not be able to knock down those doors, but you keep trying,
Yeah, and for a debut album, you've got an absolute stellar set of musicians, including one of my favourites, Albert Lee, the country rock guitarist. How did you manage to assemble that kind of quality?
I was so lucky. I as you know, but for the listeners' purpose, I also run a PR company with my partner Lisa Davies. And that basically means that we represent music artists and some authors and try and get their music played on the radio, get them interviews on radio and TV. And Albert Lee had been one of Lisa's artists for quite a while. And through a weird series of events, I was asked to stage manage Albert's 70th birthday concerts at Cadogan Hall in London. That was two concerts over 2 nights at the weekend, and it was just full of a host of huge stars: Marty Wilde, Shakin' Stevens, Bill Wyman, Albert Lee obviously playing there, Chaz and Dave. The list went on and on. I can't even think of them now. The Shadows. And so I got to meet all these wonderful people and become good friends with Albert whilst I was doing that. It was a job I'd never done before, stage manage anything, but someone obviously saw something in me and saw that I was good at bossing people around, I guess. I don't know. But so I managed to do that. And so I got to know Albert really well. And it was just at that time that I was recording the debut album. And so I had the track called The Innocence of Men, which is a country kind of feeling track. And I just said to Albert, would you mind playing on it for me? We were doing some recording at a studio in a couple of weeks after the shows. And he said, yeah, no problem at all. Just bring it down. And I got my engineer there, and he set up, and Albert hadn't even heard the song, and he just put on his headphones and he listened through to it maybe once or twice just while fiddling around the guitar. And then he said, okay, we'll do a take now. And he just played the whole thing, the solo and everything. Just amazing. And at that same concert, there was a guy called Elliot Randall, who famously played for Steely Dan and in the Doobie Brothers for a while. And he played that great solo on Reeling in the Years, which was actually voted by Jimmy Page as one of the greatest solos of all time. And I'm a huge Steely Dan fan, so I obviously made sure I got to know Elliot. And there was a song on the first album called The Cola Paranoia, which I always felt had a real Steely Dan feel about it. And so I said to Elliot, do you mind if I send you this song? And I sent it to him, and he literally called me up within 5 minutes and said, I'd love to play on it. So now I've got Albert Lee and the guitar player from Steely Dan on a debut album. And I got on so well with Elliot that he played on 3 or 4 other tracks on that album and on the subsequent album as well. So, yeah, just being in the right place at the right time. And I guess they obviously like the songs and music and saw something in me as well. So, yeah, it's quite a lineup for a debut album.
You're not kidding. Let's hear a little bit of it now. This is from the album Michae Armstrong. This is Allentown.
Well, we're living here in Allentown, and they're closing all the factories down. Out in Bethlehem they're killing time, filling out forms, standing in line. Our fathers fought the Second World War, spent their weekends on the Jersey Shore, met our mothers in the USO, asked them to dance with them slow. And we're living here in Allentown, but the restlessness was handed down, and it's getting very hard to stay. For the Pennsylvania we never found, for the promises our teachers gave. If we worked hard, if we behaved. So the graduations hang on the wall, but they never really helped us at all. No, they never taught us what was real. Iron and coke, chromium steel. And we're waiting here in Allentown, but they've taken all the coal from the ground, and the union people crawled away. Child had a pretty good shot to get at least as far as their old man got. Something happened on the way to that place. They threw an American flag in our face. Hey, hey, hey. I'm living here in Allentown, and it's hard to keep a good man down, but I won't be getting up today. it's getting very hard to stay. And we're living here in Allentown.
Hello, you're listening to Words and Music with Mike Madden, and my special guest tonight is Michael Armstrong. Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you very much.
Now, going back in time, that was your first album from 2015, but going further back, you were brought up listening to things like the Beatles' greatest hits. But I know from your age that the Beatles would have long since split by the time you were listening to their greatest hits. So who else can you remember from back then that would have had an influence on you?
Well, the Beatles' greatest hits, the Blue and the Red album, my mum and dad had those on cassette in the car, in the family car. So that's how I got familiar with the Beatles and fell in love with them, and since bought everything else in my own time. But you're right, they were long gone by the time I was born. I guess so. Really, I was influenced by my dad's record collection, and he loved, and my mum, Neil Diamond. I remember hearing a lot of Steely Dan. He had some Steely Dan. My dad was a big Led Zeppelin fan. That never really rubbed off on me, Zeppelin. I mean, I appreciate them; they're fantastic. But the real heavy stuff never quite did it for me. So there was those kind of artists I was listening to, and by the time, I mean, that I'm probably about 6 or 7 years old by then. And as I said before, about the Top of the Pops on a Thursday night, you'd hear things, and things would stick with you, and then I'd start buying my own vinyl at the time, as it was. I mean, we're talking early 80s now, so Michael Jackson was every kind of 10-year-old boy's, might be the wrong thing to say, 10-year-old boy's hero.
Dressing up as a ghoul in a graveyard.
Yeah, so I mean, I had the Michael Jackson leather jacket, and I tried to do the moves, which is terribly embarrassing because I'm an awful dancer. I'm an okay musician, but a terrible dancer. There's some embarrassing family videos out there. Yeah, so Michael Jackson, love Michael Jackson. Paul McCartney was then a solo artist, so I loved all Paul McCartney's solo stuff. And then I think as I began to play the guitar and write songs, I was introduced to Bob Dylan. And I think any songwriter would pay homage to Bob Dylan. He's the most amazing songwriter of all time. So I fell in love with that. My Uncle John was really into his music, and he got me into people like Crosby, Stills and Nash, and Jackson Browne and Pink Floyd. Huge Pink Floyd fan. So I think my tastes developed as I got older, and as I was introduced to other kinds of music. And I taught myself to play the piano. I had guitar lessons, but I taught myself to play the piano. And that was when I got into Billy Joel, because I used to sit in the kind of school music room working out, listening to songs and trying to work out what they were playing. So yeah, I just love all sorts of music.
It's quite an eclectic mix, I must say.
Yeah,
from Led Zeppelin, Billy Joel, and Bob Dylan in between. Fantastic. And yeah, you did have guitar lessons, and you self-taught the piano. That must have been a challenge to actually master that instrument without any tuition.
I don't know. I've never mastered it. I'm sure that any piano teacher would watch me play the piano and turn away in disgust. The interesting thing about the piano and the guitar is I only ever wanted to accompany my voice. I wanted to write songs and accompany my voice. So I've never been a virtuoso guitar player who can do all this squiggly stuff. I do a little bit of it, but it's not my thing. I just really want to strum an acoustic guitar to sing along to. And the same thing with the piano. It's a strange kind of piano style that I have, but again, it does the job. It does what I want it to do. I can write songs and sing away to keep myself happy here in my room.
And you got early recognition for your songwriting when you came second in a songwriting contest on that. I've not said this for a long time, but Pebble Mill at 1, second only to Gary Barlow, who was just 16 at the time. So how bad is the grudge that you've ever held ever since?
Do you know what? I'd forgotten all about that. That's the weird thing. And I love, my wife particularly loves Take That, and has seen them, dragged me along to see them. And I think Gary's a great songwriter. And, I think they're really great. And I was reading Gary Barlow's autobiography on holiday, I don't know, 10 years ago, whenever it was. And I come to the section where he talks about his big break being when he won Pebble Mill at 1. And as I read it, it all came back to me. And I thought, I did that. That was me. It was a Christmas, I think it was a Christmas song. And my music teacher at the time encouraged me to enter. And I ended up coming second. I didn't get to go on the TV for anything. I think my name came up on like a ticker tape thing at the bottom saying second place, Michae Armstrong. But Gary actually got to go to the studio. So no, I hadn't thought about it. I met Gary Barlow in 2013, I think it was. But I didn't mention anything. No.
I was no stab in the back or anything like that.
No. He beat me fair and square, and he's done well for himself, so I can't complain.
I guess he's proven himself a worthy winner. And then by age 18, you were playing original material across London, which is, I always think that's much more of a challenge as opposed to doing covers. So how did you get the band together and actually, was it all your own material or was it sort of a joint effort?
No, it was always my own material. I was the sole songwriter. I got the band for the old-fashioned way. I advertised in the NME. My brother played bass for me. I've been playing with my brother. We used to, I think from the age of about 14, I played at the local Holiday Inn hotel in the bar for a few quid. And my brother would join me and do harmonies because we'd been singing in the backseat of my car, mum's dad's car, singing onto Beatles songs since we were tiny. And so we had a good musical relationship. He played bass guitar. So we advertised in the NME. And so lucky, we got a guy called Matt Pryor, who's still my friend today, who's just a phenomenal guitar player. He now plays for Bonnie Tyler and has been in her band for about 20 years now, since he left mine. And, and then he knew we went through a series of drummers, but he knew someone good, Alex, who now also plays with Bonnie Tyler, thanks to Matt. And we were a really, really good band, really hot musicians. But you are completely right. Playing your own material is tough. There are music venues. You don't go to a pub really and play your own material. Otherwise, people throw bottles at you and rotten tomatoes because they want to hear the hits. Which I've obviously done that as well. Every musician has. But this band was particularly for playing my own music. We played some great places. We ended up playing at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. I think 3 times we played there as a support act to Manfred Mann's Earth Band one night, Snowy White, the blues guitar player I used to play with Pink Floyd, another night, and with the Counterfeit Stones, the copycat band, another night. Yeah. So they were fantastic gigs. The problem was, we're talking in front of 1,500, 2,000 people at those venues. The problem was that the next night or the following weekend, you'd be playing at some dive in Harlesden in front of your mum and dad. And my poor mum and dad went everywhere, do you know what I mean, to see us play. They were great times, but it was a tough thing. And eventually the band we just got fed up with it. It was too much like hard work which is a shame, after 2 or 3 years. But I say I kept in touch with them, and Matt played on my original album as well. I played guitar on that as well as the other famous people I've mentioned. So it's good to still have them as mates.
Yeah, absolutely. After all this time, but of course, as you say, you got a bit fed up with it. Wasn't really going anywhere, so you joined the family construction business, and then a couple of events, your father's retirement and your own health scare turned things on its head, really. And you got back into music. Was that sort of a down in the dumps moment or an inspiration?
Depends if you ask my wife or not, I guess. No, a couple of things there. I thought I joined the family construction business under duress because my dad was fed up with me sitting in my room writing songs, not being a hippie at 18 years old. And he ran a building company, and he said, "You come and work with me." They were incredibly supportive of my music career, but sitting in a bedroom smoking stuff is probably not an ideal thing. So I joined my dad in the construction company, and we were really successful. Really successful for about 15 years, and real life kind of took over, if you like. During that period, I got married. I've got 3 kids, got a big mortgage, and the dream seemed to have disappeared, if you like. And then it was those things you mentioned, but it was a weird coincidence and series of events. I think first of all, I through a covers band that I started playing with, I met Lisa Davies, who has worked in the music business since she was 16 years old, record plugger, head of Epic during the big days where she promoted Michael Jackson and ABBA and, you know, all these kind of every single Shakin' Stevens hit. So a huge figure in the music business, and managed to get her to listen to my songs, and she loved them. And at the same time, my dad had a heart attack, so he really didn't want to carry on the business. He's fine, he's okay, still with us now, but he didn't want to carry on, and I never really wanted to do it myself, so I didn't want to carry on without him. And everyone thought I was mad because, as I said, this was a successful business. We'd had a really good few years, but sometimes you've got to go for it. And I spoke to my wife and the kids, and I said, "This is what I'd like to do," and they said, "Okay, go for it. You've got to be happy, you know." So it was a real big gamble, and one that's taken quite a few years to pay off. But I'm glad to say it has eventually. You know, what was weird is I decided I would take a year off and I would record the first album. And I figured I had enough savings to do that. And after a year, I was only halfway through the album and I'd spent all the money. And and so it's like, okay, what are we going to do now? And Lisa, bless her, said to me, I've been working kind of on and off with Lisa at the time, and she said to me, well, come and help me out a couple of days a week with the plugging company, and then you can still record the album. And that's what happened, and that's kind of what saved me, really.
Well, I know that in the time away from music, you'd written sort of 200 songs, and I'm guessing, you know, a lot of people wouldn't produce that in a lifetime. So obviously that creativity was still there. So let's go and listen to one of those songs now, the title track from your 2018 album, Looking for the World.
Looking at you, making love so simple and new. Looking at me, wishing it was easy and free. This roller coaster ride, ignition, soaring highs, then wild attrition, brings me back to earth with gravity. Looking at you and all the crazy things that you do. Are you looking at me? Dizzy in the distant debris. This superstar and wild ambition ain't no cure for my condition. The senseless side of sensitivity. When the road is out to grind you and the smoke just seems to blind you, stop looking for the world. If your back's about to break you and the cracks cut through the paper, stop looking for the world. Looking just seems to blind you. Stop looking for the world. If your back's about to break you and the cracks cut through the paper, stop looking for the world. And if the cold wind blows right through you, throw your arms, sing hallelujah. Stop looking for the world. And if your back's about to break you and the cracks and crisis shake you, stop looking for the world. Looking for the world. Looking for the world. Looking for the world. Tried my best to make this happen. Tried my best to make this Looking for the world. Looking for the world. Tried my best to make this happen. Tried my best to make this
That was Looking for the World by Michae Armstrong, my guest tonight. So welcome back again, Michael.
Thank you.
So we've had a whistle-stop tour through your youth and through your first band, and we've played music from two of your albums. So let's fast forward to today, and you've been working on an album called, am I going to say this right? Ojai.
No, you're not going to say it right.
I knew I wouldn't.
No, but no one has so far, so that's okay. It's Ojai. It's spelled Ojai. It's been called Ouija. It's been called Ojai. It's been called whatever you just called it. But it's actually pronounced Ojai. Ojai is a beautiful, idyllic little town in California. It's about an hour and a half's drive north of Los Angeles. And in 2018, I was invited to go there and spend some time with American singer-songwriter Ben Folds, who happens to be one of my all-time heroes and great musical influences. Incredible songwriter, pianist, and it turns out lovely guy as well. And yeah, I was invited to go there on a songwriting retreat with some other girls and guys were there as well, mainly from America. I was the only kind of Englishman there. And it was just a wonderful few days. And I wrote quite a lot of songs, or certainly started a lot of songs. And they make up the hub of my new album. So it seemed like a perfect title for it, and an appropriate title for it. Yeah.
Well, the town must have made such an impression on you, but it makes you wonder as anywhere else. So, can we expect the next album to be called Solihull or Sydney or something like that?
Well, Sydney would be nice. Yeah. Someone invites me to go there. Do you know what? Solihull would be nice at the moment, seeing none of us can leave anywhere. We're in lockdown.
Yeah.
Anywhere into. Anywhere with an open pub.
It's not quite got a beach, but it'll do for now. Now, it's described as a genre that I'm not particularly familiar with, called yacht rock. What exactly is that?
Yacht rock. I think yacht rock may originally have been a derogatory term when music was going out of fashion. I'm not even sure what it derives from. But an example of the kind of bands we're talking about would be like Christopher Cross and Steely Dan and the Doobie Brothers and Michael McDonald and probably a bit of Fleetwood Mac during the 80s and maybe Dire Straits. I think it's kind of rich man's rock, if you like. You know what I mean? High-end, hi-fi, serious, maybe a bit of REO Speedwagon. It's just polished pop stroke rock, I think is what it's all about. And I guess, all those bands, people I mentioned, I absolutely love. I love that West Coast sound, the harmonies and the brightness, Beach Boys and all that kind of thing. And because much of the album was written on the West Coast, I think it's got that vibe to it, and it's got that influence. There's something about, I'd never been to that part of America, you know, and when you drive up the Pacific Coast Highway, as I did from Los Angeles through Malibu Beach and Santa Barbara, up to into the mountains, into Ojai, you know, you think you're in a movie. It's fantastic, and so there's a real reflection of that in the music, which is the whole yacht rock thing, I think.
Yeah, and you decided to do all the production yourself for this one. Was that cost affected, or was that just that you weren't getting the sound that you wanted?
Yeah, it was a series of things, really. Warren, the first album I produced with Keith Bessie, who's got an amazing track record. Again, we talked about the musicians I had on that first album, but Keith, as a producer and engineer, had worked with Elton John and 10cc and Cliff Richard, and just a real legend in the music business. So for him to want to take me on board and record that album, that was fabulous, and got me in touch with lots of people. He's subsequently retired, not on the profits of the album, I can assure you. But and I then did the second album with a guy called Warren Bennett, who I'm still working with now. Lovely, lovely guy. But records sell so little these days. You know, it's all about streams and that it's very difficult to make a revenue from record sales, and so it's difficult to get a producer on board because the amount of work they have to put in for some sort of deal that you would do with them, however many points or percentage points, it's just not worth them doing it. And so I had that in the back of my mind. I'd learned so much from Keith Bessie and from Warren, the previous producers, that I really fancied having a bash at myself. And I don't know if that was originally my plan, but I started with the demos and then I got the other musicians to play on it. And before I knew it, I was producing it myself, you know. And then along came lockdown anyway. So I was stuck here by myself. I wasn't about to, you know. So it just carried on like that. So I think it was a semi-conscious decision, something I'm really proud of, because to hear the finished product and think, you know, that I did that myself is extra special to me. You know, I'm the kind of geek who used to read all the producer's notes and the engineer notes on the back of the vinyl, you know. So I'm even more proud having my name there than I am on the front of it, to be honest. And also, on this album, I got to choose the songs, which sounds like a strange thing to say, but you mentioned before that I've got maybe written 200 odd songs. And so for the first album in particular, I said to Keith said, what songs have you got? And so I sent him 200 songs. And in all various states of demos, and he was like, okay, geez, thanks. And then he had to sift through them, and he chose 12, which we recorded on the album. And the kind of same thing happened with Warren. What have you got? Here you go. You regret asking me that. And so this time I knew there was the songs that I'd written in Ojai, plus some other songs I've written in the past which I thought were great, which the other producers hadn't chosen. So that was a big plus for this album.
And I noticed you've got Antoine Saltz on as well. It's such an innovative musician.
Yeah, that's what makes, I think, my production and having Antoine play guitar on this album is what sets it aside from the others. And it's got much more of a band feel about it, I think, more of a lively band rather than it's still very polished, because that's just the way I am. But it does feel like a band. And Antoine plays with a band called Saltz with him and his brother, and I met them about 3 years ago and did some promotion work for them. And then when I did a show in London for the last album, 2019 was the show, I asked if they'd be my backing band because they were so good, you know, incredible musicians. I think 18, 19, 20 years old, the two and three of them. And so they learned my songs and they were just incredible. And so from then on, I said, okay, can you play guitar on the album? So it happened like that. Incredible guitar player. To think he's so young is, oh, God, you know, a great future ahead of him.
Well, we had him on the show at the time. I think it's probably about time we got him back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I still speak to him now and then. I've been looking at their Facebook stuff, and I know he's been writing and recording, as has every kind of creative person over the last year. When you're not able to perform, what do? You write and you record. So there'll be definitely some good stuff coming from them.
Now, you knew that music was in your blood at a very early stage, and not necessarily passed down from your parents, apart from the Beatles. But have you passed on your musical gifts to your children?
No. I've got three sons. My eldest is now 20, and he's just begun to come round from not being embarrassed about me anymore because he's becoming an adult now. You know, you go for that phase where you're embarrassed of you should be embarrassed of your dad. That's what dads are there for. They're there to embarrass their children.
By definition, isn't it?
Absolutely. But he's now getting to that age where I noticed he liked something of mine on Facebook. He was probably drunk. That he liked something of mine on Facebook the other day, which is the first thing he's ever done. You know, liked a song of mine or a thing. So I thought, oh, well, he really is growing up. Middle son Sam, got a good voice, and he had piano lessons for a while. Hasn't really continued it, but he's like he was in a lot of plays at school and doing all the singing and things like that. So he's the show off, if you like. And so he's definitely got some talent there. The little guy, Sonny, he's 14 years old, and you know, if his friends ever found out that his dad, you know, sang, it would kill him. You know, that would be the end of it. So I'm locked away in a cupboard.
That sounds so familiar.
Yeah.
Now, in the past, you've done tours with Leo Sayer, T'Pau, collaborations with Sir Paul McCartney, Sir Cliff Richard. I could go on and on and on and on and on. But I won't, because if you could collaborate or tour with somebody new, who would it be?
Somebody new or somebody I haven't toured with old?
Or either, I don't really mind.
Well, it would always be Bob Dylan for me. No question about it. You know what I mean? I love Bob Dylan. So to have any sort of connection with him would be wonderful. Ben Folds, who, of course, I saw in Ojai, who I worked with there, you know, incredible musician, would love to collaborate or tour with him. I don't know. When it comes to the young guys, I don't listen to a lot of young music. I'm probably Salts, Antoine and Greg Salts. You know, I've already collaborated with them, so I'd love to do more with them. That's for sure. Yeah,
that's a very good suggestion. I'm sure Antoine will take you up on that.
Yeah.
Sadly, we're running out of time. We could talk all night, but before we go, just let people know when the album Ojai, have I said it right this time?
Yeah, you got it.
is coming out, and particularly the track we're going to play, Matters of Heart.
Yeah, Ojai is released on the 25th of June 2021, but it's actually already available to pre-order at Amazon, iTunes, and all those kind of places. And if you pre-order it, you instantly receive the single you're going to play, Matters of Heart. Fantastic. It's been brilliant talking to you. We wish you all the best with it. So thank you so much for coming on, Michael. Thanks, Mike. I really appreciate it. We're going to play out with Matters of Heart from the album Ojai by Michae Armstrong. Innocent but keen to wisen up to all that life would have in store. We opened the door and I laid me bare. I believed that we could fly. It wasn't always eye to eye, but face to face, these feelings never change. Fortune came, and I laid me bare. It'll always be forever, and together this endeavor, 'cause we fought our way from nothing at the start. Got ideas above my station. I'm afraid of growing up and old. The truth's never told. I lay me bare.
You've been listening to the Arts Show podcast with Mike Madden. Come back soon for more artists, authors, musicians and anyone else connected with the arts. We're going to play out with Mike Sanchez and I Don't Stand a Chance.
Baby, you hiding something that you don't want me to know, because I'm getting a vibe from way down the side, like you're just about ready to go. And you can't tell me where you stayed last night, you just can't cope with treating me right. I'm on the road to heartbreak, now's the time to tell me so, because I'm getting a chill like I'm gonna be ill. I know you don't want me no more, I won't be satisfied with your little white lies. Girl, I've only just begun to realize I don't stand a chance, I don't stand a chance. You don't wanna know and I can't make you dance. Well, I'll say goodbye, find yourself another guy. I wish you were mine, but I'm losing my mind. I don't stand a chance. Poor heart in your hands, all I wanna do is hold you, but you don't wanna love this man. Am I on the road to heartbreak? Now's the time to tell me so, because I'm getting a chill like I'm gonna be ill. I know you don't want me no more, I won't be satisfied with your little white lies. Girl, I've only just begun to realize I don't stand a chance. No, I don't stand a chance. You don't wanna know and I can't make you dance. Well, I'll say goodbye, find yourself another guy. I wish you were mine, but I'm losing my mind. I don't stand a chance.